Welcome to LYLAS. If you grew up in the 90s and you know what that stands for, then this podcast is for you.
Welcome to episode 17. Gosh, we just keep climbing. I love it.
I do too. And we've got another kind of fun topic today, or just one that's sort of, again, very present for both of us,
Mhm.
spring fever. And so, kind of walking through what that means for us and what we're focused on moving into a new season.
Yeah. And it's ironic. We're apart now, obviously, as you guys can tell. And if you do watch this on YouTube or something, Jen lives in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. And here I am in crazy West Virginia, once again wearing a sweater after it was 80 degrees yesterday. So, you know,
I think I just brought the warm weather to West
you
Virginia. Then I took it home
come
with me.
back. Come back for many reasons. But yes, for that too. Gosh. No, but that does. I think it does put us in like a spring and summerish mood. And anytime there's a season of renewal
Yes.
or change, it really does kind of speak to our souls, I think, too, right?
Spring specifically, if you think about all the people that live up north or in the Midwest where they've just been covered in snow and cold and ice for the last like 4 to 5 months. And now they've got beautiful sunshine and the birds are chirping and things are turning green. Spring is just like a sense of renewed hope of like, we made it, we made it again. We made it out alive. I know my dad used to talk about winter being like depressing.
Hmm.
And then spring would roll around and it was just like a total shift in his mood. So I'm sure you feel the same way to some degree because it still gets pretty cold
It
in
gets
West Virginia.
cold. Yeah, but it gets gray. And so
Yeah.
I call like winter. I don't even because we don't get as much snow as what we did when we were kids, which is kind of sad. Like we had one snow day this year, but we had like 10 flood days.
Yeah.
So,
Tons of water.
whatever. Tons. We got plenty of water up here. Um, but I call it wet, gray, cold mud season because that's all it is. It's
Yeah.
gray, it's cold, it's wet, and there's nothing but mud everywhere. And it's like we're in this little bubble. So if you by chance have yourself, driving north towards West Virginia and you go underneath those tunnels, well, guess what? You've also went into this bubble because you're not going to see the sun again until you get out of the tunnel on the other end. It's just, it doesn't exist here for about 3 months. So I am totally looking forward to it. So
I
much.
just love the flowers. I planted my garden right before I left for spring break and they were just tiny, tiny little sprouts. And I came back and they're like plants. I've got fruit out there on some of them. I've got like actual things growing in my garden already. So I'm super excited. Because that's a big one for me in the springtime. I love to plant my garden. I love to amend my beds and get it all ready. And I spend way too much time out there just looking at my plants and checking on them because it's such a source of enjoyment. I've turned into a little old lady that likes to hang out in her garden and drink coffee in the mornings, but no shame in my old lady game.
No way. It sounds perfect. So what are you growing then? And how did you get into this? Because I don't recall this like green thumb like sprouting out whenever we were kids.
No, despite having, a farm to grow up on at my dad's house and he grew everything, but guess I just wasn't paying attention. It changes from year to year. I have certain things that I always grow tomatoes because my kids eat them constantly. So I try to grow as many as possible. And we really started during COVID, like everybody, we started just a kitchen garden and built the boxes. We've raised beds and then we've kind of expanded it the last couple of years. But I like to do lettuce in the spring because it just grows really beautifully. And if you've ever had fresh lettuce from your garden, you'll never want to eat store bought lettuce again. It tastes so different. I love it. So I usually have lettuce growing, tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers are super easy. If you're not very good at gardening, I've learned that I have a really hard time killing those. Like last year, I planted my garden and then went away for spring break and didn't water it for 2 weeks, and half of everything died. So last year was not my best year. I learned a lot. Like you have to water it consistently, but let's see, peppers are really tough to kill. Basil. I love cilantro, but that's a cooler weather. And most of these, like I used to buy from a specific nursery here in Charleston, Rita's Roots. She has amazing plants, and so I still do. I buy some from her, but I tried to grow from seed this year because I just
What?
challenge. And I know that I can keep her plants alive, but I wanted to see if I could grow from seed. So this year it's mostly from seed. I would say like 80% of my garden's from seed. About 20% are store-bought plants from Rita's. But yeah, so far my squash is amazing. All of those were from seed. What else is out there? Lots of flowers. I like lots of pollinator, to draw in our
Mhm.
pollinators. So I have lots of flowers. Some of those I've grown from past years, um, from their seeds that I collected or kept. And I'm trying to think. Last year we tried corn and that did not go well. So didn't I
Mm.
aborted that mission this year? Um, yeah, I think
Aborted the
that's
mission.
Oh, I've got lots of peas and green beans. So anything that like we eat regularly, I try to grow, or I tried to this year. I usually throw in some random things just to see if I can grow it. Like last year we did kohlrabi, which is it's so beautiful in the garden and I love it. It takes up a lot of space. And so I didn't do kohlrabi this year. I love fennel. I love the way it looks. I love the way it smells. Also didn't do fennel this year just because I couldn't find it. But I may stick one in later if I can find it. So those are two really pretty plants to grow.
This sounds huge.
What?
The
The
whole
garden or the
garden,
plant?
yeah.
It's really
All of it.
not. I mean, I'm not good with dimensions or things like that, but it's really not. I have like 4 rows of raised beds. And I just stuff it all in there. I just want full beds. So I've got stuff literally like 2 inches apart, some of them. We go back and forth. Jeff's like, he wants me to like lay it out exactly what I'm gonna do. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let's just get in there and just put them where we feel that day. And he's over there just like, I can't handle you. Um, so yeah, I didn't really plan much. Just sort of go for it. See what happens.
That sounds so awesome, and all the foods that you're eating too, it sounds like that rainbow that we talked about,
Yeah.
as part of one of our earlier episodes, but that it's just what an experience for the kids too, to see from seed to table, really that whole kind of like transformation that takes place. I can just imagine them being pretty enamored by it too, are they?
They love it. They're so into the garden, both of my kids, and both of them eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. So I don't have a hard time getting them to eat their fruits and vegetables. They're not great at trying new things, but the things they like, they're very good at eating. Lots of broccoli in our house, cauliflower, that kind of stuff. I have a hard time growing those, it seems. I don't know. They always end up diseased and we haven't been able to get anything out of them. So I did not grow those this year. Cabbage is really hard for me too. It seems like one year we did tomatillos and had like a million, but we didn't know how to like collect them. We didn't know when the appropriate time to bring those in. So that I don't remember what happened. We had a million of those. But yeah, they do really get into it, which is also I think why I like it. It's something we do together. I really enjoy it, but also I just like to watch them sort of out there digging in the dirt and just kind of making their own fun. I usually give them like a section of the bed where they get to plant whatever they want. Or
Oh,
for Easter each year, they usually get like a couple seeds and they'll start them out from seeds in the windowsill, and then we transplant them at some point out there. And it's actually like eating. It's a rainbow, so the little Easter cartons are like pre-made and everything. It's really cute, and they've enjoyed that. They've done those the last couple years too. So I love that. I love sharing that with them
mhm.
specifically because I like it, and you know hopefully you get something at the end. Otherwise, you just waste a ton of time and money and
Well,
water. But here we are.
Well, but I think the benefit, like you said, even if that does happen, there is just something so grounding about having your feet and your hands in the dirt, in the
Mhm.
grass. I mean, we even try, I mean, from yoga or whatever other rounding school of thought you come from, they always say if you can, and some people are tactilely sensitive, so to each their own, but if you can spend some time just in the grass, connecting with the earth, it really does help to just kind of like rejuvenate your spirit in so many different
Yeah.
ways. And yeah, I love weeding. So here, you see my house, it's on a hill. So
Yes.
there's there's not much of a garden that's going to take place here. But I think for me, a big stress relief, and there's my sweet dog who's also stress relief, is weeding. It's my
Mhm.
favorite thing in the world to do. So to the point where I mean, I'll even like weed the lawn because we don't use any pesticides or stuff like that. But if I see something that is just, I don't know, I'll go out there and just pick grass just because it's fun.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. Just grew up doing that. I found it to be a very kind of like therapeutic practice in a sense.
Yeah.
And it is. It's just enjoyable to be out there in nature and to be doing something like that. And the fact that you guys do it as a family and then are able to incorporate it into like your meals, that's so fun. That's so fun.
The way that it used to be done, the good old fashioned way, returning back to those ways.
We
We had
should
some of it
be.
back in the day.
Mhm.
Some things for sure.
Are you going to start canning? I have to ask. Since you're
I
doing
mean,
all
I
this.
guess we tend to eat everything. So,
Mhm.
I don't really have a lot of need to can. My husband likes to ferment things, and so he'll make his own hot sauce because we generally have a plethora of peppers, like
Mhm.
really spicy peppers. He likes really really hot sauce, so he's made his own hot sauce several times.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like the tomatoes don't even make it in the house. The kids eat them standing out there, just like filling their
Mm, mm, mm,
faces.
mm.
So yeah, there's really not all that much left over. We tend to eat all the lettuce, or I give it away. I like to give it to like neighbors or teachers, Jack's teachers in the
Oh,
past. I would generally give them some of our produce or trade it with other people for their produce. I just like the whole, you know, the
totally.
the connection piece of it too. Just here's something I grew. Like
Yeah.
it feels so meaningful. Here's some lettuce.
It is. Yeah, no, you're totally right, and I think that the way that we try to do it is to go to farmers markets, because there are
Hmm.
some, like, very random your dad had one of the few farms, um, like, flat spots that we have here, and so being able to support local farms to kind of know that this is someone that spent a lot of time, effort, and energy into growing something, I just really feel like that's a good method, and it has a nice connection to it too. Whenever you can see the person that it came from, if you're not that person doing it, so
Yeah. Gives you much more appreciation for our food. We have
totally.
some farms around here. We like to go pick strawberries or blueberries and just, and meeting the farmers, knowing your farmer. It's special, I think,
Mhm.
for me, it certainly is. Having grown up around a lot of farmers and just enjoying sort of the peacefulness of being out on a farm and raising, everything that you're going to eat from the animals to the fruits and vegetables. There's just something really peaceful about that. So we like to hit up our local farms around here as well.
Definitely. We'll shout some of those out too on our Facebook page because whenever we do that, it does seem to generate, just much more support. And anytime that we can throw that out there, definitely. Especially since some of our good friends do it too. You know, I
Yeah.
gotta shout out to Lacey and Park Ferguson with Elmcrest Farm because that's where we get a lot of our stuff from. And the Wild Ramp here in Huntington is a really fun outdoor market that is just trying to grow and really make sustainable food options. And so you got to get back and support that stuff. And I do think that's a part of this whole spring summer season with things too. So that's one area of actual like biologic growth, right?
Hmm.
As well as therapeutic benefit in that it is a grounding, it is a very calming um, type of process. But what else are we working on with growth then as we're transitioning into these seasons?
Well, I also think just making summer plans are for me, typically I've got everything sort of lined up what we're doing for the summer. And this year I'm taking a little bit different approach because I've learned this year that less planning tends to benefit me more, just not having specific plans for everything and just sort of going with the flow a little bit more. Like, of course, we're going to plan out if we're taking any trips, sort of those dates. We have some of those things nailed down, but I don't have the kids in a lot of camps this year. We're just going to kind of do our own thing and really try to enjoy them this year, being that they're both going to be in elementary school next year.
No.
Just spending our days together, not having it so rigidly planned or like shuttling them to different camps all summer. Like it was a lot last year. And I was a little mad at myself that I planned all of that because it left very little time in the day for us to hang together, but also just for me personally. Like I was just driving like most of the morning getting them to camp. So taking that pressure off myself not to have them involved in a million things this summer is
Yeah.
sort of my new plan.
I love that, and I think you're right. We all kind of fall in those traps, like, we gotta have them engaged, we gotta have them stimulated, we don't want them to turn in, like, couch potatoes, you know what I mean, over the summer, and at times that can just almost lead to overbooking, or just over, I don't know, engagement.
Stimulating
Yeah.
overset because then they are overstimulated and they come home and they're almost like wild. And you're like, wait a minute, I just sent you to camp for 4 hours. Why aren't you tired and ready for a nap? And instead they're like bouncing off the walls because they've been so like overstimulated. So I'm hoping it will have a little bit of the reverse effect this year. And they will, we can go out and do things in the morning and come home and relax. But it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot on the moms and the dads that are shuttling them back and forth to all of these cool camps and paying for them. I mean, quite frankly,
Mhm.
I don't want to be doling out hundreds of dollars for somebody to watch my kid for 4 hours a day. Like that's also not
Yeah.
what I'm looking for this year. So not to say nothing against parents that do that. I understand parents have to work in the summer and you got to have a place for your kids
Mhm.
to go so you can. But having the luxury of being home with my kids in the summer, I just want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Cameron was a big camp kid. If there was a camp going on, that kid was in it.
Right.
One, I did like camps. Like, I think sometimes of even some of, like, the trips and things that we go on is, like, I feel like I'm at summer camp or, like,
Hmm.
real fun, like, intense weekends with people. I feel like I'm leaving summer camp just because in some ways my parents had to do something with me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I function, but I probably need some help with that, but they had to do something with me because I just would have driven them absolutely nuts. If I don't have
Yeah.
something to do, but if I have something to do, then I'm 100% okay, and
Right.
I do get those to-do lists done every single day and, check everything off, and they're doozies at times, but I think that that was where my kind of sense for things kinda came into play, and so with Cameron, whenever I was working, kid was in camp, or he was with some
Yeah.
of his grandparents, but with our youngest one, we have tried to be kind of mindful and aware, I think, of that, but then it's also just still navigating schedules and routines, and so by situation, I think our life with her just has to be more on the flow, on the
Hmm.
go, as to where she's gonna be here or if she's gonna be, um, at the other house. That has to require a lot of flexibility. And
Yeah.
so sometimes the camp scene doesn't go with that. So what are you gonna do with them in the meantime? And I
Yeah.
think with that mindset that you have is just doing the best that you can,
Yeah.
is really what it's gonna end up coming down to for it. So we'll figure that out as we
And
get.
leaving it open. You never know when she may be home for a week and a camp
Mhm.
has one spot and you can send her that week. I do have them signed up for one camp out in Colorado because it fills up so quickly. So, and they really enjoyed it year before last. So I signed them up for that one, but it's both of them go to the same camp at the same
Mhm.
time. I have to get them to the bottom of the mountain. That's it. And then, they're good for 4 hours. So that's the only thing that we really have planned. We're also going to do a camping trip
Mhm.
with my family. But we don't really have like anything huge planned, anything out of the norm. A week down in Hilton Head with my mom,
Mhm.
our beach vacation. I'm like, we don't really have that much planned, but here's three things right off the rip that I guess we do. The rest of it is still pretty open, though. I usually like to have activities scheduled for when we're in Colorado because we're there for so long.
Mm.
But like I said, I think this year we're just going to kind of go with the flow and wait and see what happens. I mean, so much is dependent upon whether Jeff has a job by then and,
Mm.
just kind of where we're at and that when that time rolls around. So trying to be just a little more lax this year. Um, I don't know. The other thing that I'm really I want to do, I've been saying all year, but I've got to get this house like cleaned and organized, like real organized. And so spring is, of course, a great time to do that because you want to get rid of stuff and sort of purge that whole feeling of like cleaning and wanting to get everything fresh, if you will,
Mhm.
as you come out of the winter haze. So that is big on my mind right now, as well as getting this place organized.
Yeah, that's a hard task. I'm so thankful that, in so many ways that my husband is very we're not I would probably be a clutter bug in some ways, but he is absolutely not. And we find how much that serves us to not have that. And I even say this sometimes in clinic, whenever you have a lot of clutter, it clutters up your mind too. So
Yeah.
visually looking at something is sometimes how it's then reflected within our thoughts and then within our feelings. And, we not that we have a stagnant house because that's definitely not, it is all, it looks like a kaleidoscope and it makes no, very little sense.
It's
Um,
beautiful though. You've done a great job, both of you. It's really a beautiful home.
it's fun. And I think that it's a very eclectic and it's very culturally influenced, but
Mhm.
very colorful, but also, we really try to keep that mentality in as much mind as we can. But there are certain areas that are just, somewhat train wrecks. Like Jen's talking about having a clean house, but you should see her car. Her car is immaculate. You look at my house is
Always.
clean. The car, it's a
Disaster.
lot better than it used to be. So this
It
is all
is.
about balance.
I will agree with you. It is better than it was when we were teenagers. Still a train wreck. But my car is always, I'm really, really a stickler for a clean car. It drives me insane, especially having a new car this year. I mean, I'm just a big believer, like you take care of things, it'll last you forever. And I've always been that way about my car, just generally speaking. You won't get in and find like a bunch of trash ever in my car. My
Mm,
kids, I can't always get everything, but I do. I clean it at least once a week. So clean car. And I wouldn't say our house is dirty. It's just
no.
unorganized. Like I just have stuff everywhere. I mean, our house is not that big, first of all. And we've tried to embrace this like tiny home concept of instead of expanding, let's just, redo what we have, which would be great if I could actually get those things accomplished. But just, we're a family of four and we're just running out of space. And so I just need to reduce like the toys, the amount of crap that my kids have in this house sends me into a spiral. You talk about like looking at clutter, nothing makes me more anxious than to walk in a house that's like dirty and cluttered, especially if it's my house. Like I just, coming back, I mean, that's all I did the last 2 days was really like
Wow.
clean and put stuff away and do like to me everything feels dirty when you come back from a long trip. So
Mm.
I had to get everything cleaned and organized to get my mind right for today, for Jack going back to school, all that stuff.
Sure, sure. No, it is a big piece of things, but I think it is funny how our personalities, even in just looking at those two spaces, can be
Yeah.
such contradictions. And I think it's having that sense of balance. If I could just convince my husband that, hey, our entire house, everything has a space that it politely lives in. Everyone
Yeah.
knows where its little place is. My closet, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I've also got the smaller one, so this totally isn't fair, but it is. I mean, it's kind of a train wreck. The car is totally improved. Like, there was a period of time, and I swear to God, this is the truth. I would sometimes get pulled over because it was such a mess that it could have been, like, thought to be making meth in it. I mean, it was it was a pretty bad, situation, but it had everything I needed in it, and then things that I didn't. And in high school, my
Yeah.
god, I don't even know
That was next
how we
level.
did in it. What did we do?
I don't know. I just stuck my feet on top of it and
The
closed
blue
my eyes.
paint, do you remember the blue
Mm,
paint in the back floorboard? How did that even get there?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there were things living in your car back then. It was pretty funky.
Yes,
Um,
but
so
it's
yeah,
balance. It's
it's
balance.
balanced. That's right. Your house, I will say, very clean. Always impressed every time I
Always.
come over.
Mhm.
Um, let's see what else we got for spring fever. I put on like just goal setting. So I've got some goals coming up. Like I said, these home improvement projects that we've talked about literally for a decade, trying to get some of those things accomplished. I would love to just get something accomplished. So definitely big on my goal setting, but also other goals, just like personal goals that I've had, some things that I want to work on. like getting my private practice license. I've been putting that off for years as well. And again, I don't know that I'm actually going to use it, but I think it's just one of those tools to have in your back pocket. One more thing to add to your toolbox. So I've really got to just do it. I mean, it would take me like 2 days if I would just buckle down, but here, here I am in my full ADHD glory.
Here
Um,
we are.
so yeah, two of my big goals for this year. Do you have any big goals for the summer,
Yeah, I think,
next couple months?
hopefully this summer I will be finally making the transition out of formal clinical practice. I am
Hmm.
very much looking forward to that. I think it's needed on so many different levels, and I'm just excited to be finished with that section of my life. It it is a it's a lot on anybody whenever they work, but it's been a lot. And I'm going to be looking forward to that. And I think the other piece to some of this is that I'm going to um thinking about our long-term goals, it's real important for us to have some fluency in languages.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, I thought it was a good idea to take French in high school,
Same.
which
French and
I'm
Latin. Like, what
well,
were we thinking?
I don't know, but then I decided to take Spanish in college. And so, you've got both of these things which kind of just run into each other. And then my stepmom is a Spanish teacher, but also speaks like Portuguese and
Mhm.
like and Italian and I don't know, a few other things too. And so it's like I really and my dad speaks Spanish, Cameron speaks Spanish. Um, for the most part, I mean, this is just something I need to devote time and effort into really doing, especially for our long-term goals, and that this would afford me the opportunity to do so. And immersion is one way in which I learn, and that is going to have to come down to maybe even sign up for some classes back at the university or just, hooking up with some Spanish speaking friends or something like that, or using some type of online method for it as well. But I do think that that is an individual goal, but is also one that I'm hoping will help our family. And Cameron definitely grew up with that language as an influence, again, from my mom and my stepdad, or my stepmom and my dad. But she lives in Vermont now, and so it's very hard for us to have that kind of immersive experience for Rachel. Except whenever we go out to eat or whenever she hears us like very lightly interchange. And so I would love to be able to share that with her as well. And then I think the other thing is I think it just comes back to finishing some things that I may have started at some point. So maybe going back and finishing like the yoga teacher training. Not that I
Yeah.
ever have any intentions of actually teaching within a studio, but I do love the learning process. And I love teaching and talking about things. So I might find some other kind of venue to utilize that kind of skill set within. Um, but other than that, now I'm just believe me, I'll stay busy.
Yes.
Um,
Those are
but
great goals, though. I mean, both of those. And it just feels good to achieve a goal, no matter what it
yeah,
is. Anytime you can achieve something, it just gives you that sense of like empowerment of like I can do whatever it is I put my mind to. And those are great, tangible goals for you to set for yourself.
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see how it goes. But it's always one of those things, right? We're always like, well, we'll see. Um, but I have a fact. Well, the best part is that I have a foundation in the things that I'm talking about, and I feel like
Right.
sometimes that gives you a nice jump start. And
Hmm.
not that it's required, but whenever you're taking on something like that, it's maybe a little helpful. And just to kind of go out and see. I'm really all about living with the flow of the moment. So I think
Yeah.
it's important to have like again anchors um that help to keep you along a path, or like I used to say a lot of times, like trail markers when I used to run.
Hmm.
Like I don't need to think about how many miles I have ahead of me or how many miles I've gone behind me. I just need to make it to the next white flag. I just need to make
Right.
it to the next flag. And that really is a great sense of probably who I am, knowing that there's a greater goal that's out there, but I'm not going to get that unless I make it to this next point. And
Yeah,
so,
there's just like check-in points, just getting to
yeah,
the next one.
yeah.
And just having something else to focus on. I struggled in the beginning transitioning like straight from career to stay-at-home mom. And I just kind of felt, I think I talked about that in one of the episodes, like just really felt lost. And that's sort of how I came up with like
Mhm.
my daily five and my routines just to have that. And that has saved me. And I think you already have so much of that in place. But like you said, you have so much energy. You're going to have to put it towards something. Like you
Right.
will go crazy just hanging out at home.
Oh,
And so I think having those goals set for yourself so that you know, okay, well, here's, of course, you're going to work on the podcast stuff because that's who you are
oh
and
my
you
gosh.
listen.
Mhm.
But having those other things that you can also work towards, I think is going to be awesome for you as you transition. And we're both back in like a place of transition at the same time. Randomly, we're
I
flip
know.
flopping. I'm going to go part time. You're going to go full time stay at home mom. Um,
Yeah.
so just trying to figure out this transition again for both of us. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to kind of dabble again, but also I want to be really consistent and stay focused on the things that I've put into place. And so
Mhm.
trying to just again juggle all of those things and be really mindful of what I really want, like really tuned into is this what I want to do for the
Yeah.
rest of life? Do I want to continue in this specific career as a school psychologist, or do I want to completely pivot at some point? I don't know, but I'm
Mhm.
excited to figure that out. And I'm excited for you to have that chance to rest. And even though you'll be busy doing other things, like you
Mhm.
worked in such a high stress career for the last decade. And, you need that time to decompress. I felt like it took me months to just decompress from all the daily stress and just the trauma. I mean, even if it's not your trauma, when you're
Sure.
dealing with someone else's trauma, it is really hard not to take that on
Mhm.
and or to let it trigger your own traumas. It may not be the same
Mhm.
trauma, but it can certainly trigger your past experiences. And so just for you to have that first time in your life. I mean, generally,
Yeah.
this will genuinely be the first time that you'll not be taking on other people's traumas,
That's fair.
and
Mhm.
you'll have a chance to breathe on your own. So I'm excited for you and what's to come of that because it's been such a amazing year for me now that I can say that looking back over the last couple 9 months or so. It's a process, but a really beautiful one, I think, if you take that up
Mhm.
and have the means to do so.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I am looking forward to it. I've worked gosh, I think we both got jobs whenever we were 16, both at the mall,
Mhm.
both in retail. And then I think whenever I was 18, I started working in some area of mental health and
Mhm.
have ever since then, and I'm 40 now. Even during my undergrad, I was working, um, you know, I think I finished that in like 3.5 years and was going through infertility kind of based treatments, all things. And then I was also volunteering for a rape crisis center. And so I would be going to the hospital whenever something would happen to somebody and being that first point of contact, aside from a medical professional to kind of lead them through that whole thing. And, it went from that type of trauma to medical based trauma. Um, and, today it's just, it is. It gets to be it's not just medical based trauma. I do a lot with military trauma, first responder trauma, sexual trauma, all of those things, just in a different type of setting. And I think I do a very good job of like compartmentalizing and not taking that stuff home. But there just comes a point whenever you know that you just need a break. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's just, and I don't have flexibility. I think if I had flexibility, then things like if I worked in a hospital, which I could, whatever, it'd be fine. Um, then that would change things up. And I have before and loved it. And I still think that I personally need to have some flexibility just within our life in order for it
Mhm.
to have a greater flow for it, at least for right now, and just kind of see where that goes and takes you. But yeah, it's I mean, but that's where I think good self-care kind of comes into play, just knowing where your limits are. Always practicing good boundaries, especially within like the kind of practice that I have. And I think that I've been very efficient in that. um, to a T. I can own that one. I'm very proud of being very efficient and having those kind of boundaries with things. But at the end of the day, it does not change everything. And I would honestly, and this will sound, I would just like to go someplace and just be. At some
Yeah.
level, you just want to go someplace and just be without also being aware of other things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably
Almost
one reason.
like a yoga retreat or someplace where you can just go and focus on nothing, but also like really get clear with yourself and your intentions and
Yeah.
your, the things that inspire you or what you truly want. And then going after those things. But it almost takes like a total disconnect from everyone you know. And again, that's your time. I
That's
mean,
whenever
it
I
all takes time.
travel.
Right. But just
That's
trying to
right.
get away from it all, that's the hard part because you still got to think about those things or at least plan for it. Where's
Mhm.
my daughter going to be? Where's my son? Who's going to take care of the dog? Like there's still things that you have to take care of until you can
100%.
do those kinds of things. But I think you're right. You've always done a good job at setting boundaries and honoring making sure that people respect those boundaries. But um, just having that freedom to kind of do whatever the hell you want to do. I
Mhm.
mean, like, what a blessing that is,
It is. It truly is,
to
and I'm
not
very, very grateful. Yes.
somewhere certain days of the week. So kudos to you for taking the time out,
Yeah.
figuring it out. Um,
Figuring something. If nothing else, my emotional, or I'm my dog's human support animal. That's what I say. Like I'm her human emotional support
she
thing.
needs you.
No, you hear all the time. Why? Because she's always right here.
Always right beside you.
God love
Um,
her.
well, spring fever is upon us. By the time
Yeah.
this airs, basically, it'll be almost summertime, but it goes right in line with this week's episode that came out, which is rituals,
Mhm.
routines, and just having that something to come back to, that practice that kind of grounds you, brings you back to yourself, helps you get back in the right mind. That shift.
Mhm.
This is the perfect time of year to do that. Even going into summertime is the perfect time to do that because most people have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule in the summer.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you're a mom, you kind of have to because your kids are out of school and you've got to figure out what to do with them all the time.
Mhm.
So, the summer is a great time to sort of reconnect and make some new goals for yourself moving
It
into this
is.
half of the year.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's a time of change and it's a time of newness and always transition. We're always kind of, and I like that. I like that you said that. You're kind of going back in to school part time. I'm going like out of it, but I think that I would be concerned about both of us if we were not in a state of change.
Mhm.
If we were both just kind of stagnant and not doing something, that's whenever I think that's when I get most concerned about someone is whenever they're not moving. Because as humans, by evolution, by design, however you want to think of it, we're designed to move. We're
And
designed to
evolve.
have flow, yes,
Mhm.
and evolve and to grow. And whenever we don't do those things, it really, really is pretty yuck.
Well, it takes so much courage to walk away from some of that. If you have a career, if you're a woman in your midlife, 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
50s, to then shift from that career that you have put so much effort into. I have a dear friend that's leaving teaching. She's a phenomenal special education teacher. And she just messaged me the other day and said, I'm taking a year off. And I was so happy for her because I know what educators have gone through these last 3 years. Same thing, I think a lot of medical people that work in the medical field, same thing. There's such a level of burnout right now that
Mhm.
I could see everyone sort of needing a break, specifically if you were already in that career for a solid decade when COVID hit. It's had such a drastic impact on our jobs and our professions that I can easily see how specifically us midlife kind of mamas need a change of pace right now or just need some sort of shift, whether that's a complete departure,
Yeah.
partial departure, a step back in, whatever it is, I can see that it's good for so many of us if you have that capability to do so. But it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what, I'm going to walk away from this for a minute to see if this is what I really want.
Mhm.
And I know for me, it took way longer than it should have. You know, my husband has
Mhm.
been saying for months, you know, are you sure you don't want to take a year off? You sure you don't want to try a different job? And I kept, nope, you know, I can do this. It'll get better. And then it didn't. Um, so it's just that having that courage to say, I need a break, and
Yeah.
honoring yourself when you need that break and not feeling like you have to step right back into something else.
Or like it's a failure if you do. I'm
Right.
not giving away anything. I'm giving, I'm giving to my family. I'm giving to myself. I'm giving to my community. I'm still giving. It's just within a different capacity.
Right.
And I am a huge advocate, and I appreciate you saying that stuff because it reminds me that we are not our titles, you know,
Absolutely.
and we are not our diagnoses or our conditions. We are, I'm Sarah,
Right.
you know, I'm not, and I am not Dr. Stevens all the, you know what I mean? And I'm not, a type 1 diabetic all the time, although that one's slightly more debatable. But it's
You
just,
are a beauty queen, though. There's no
that is true.
denying that.
For right now, yeah, yeah, I've got a few more months of that one going. But it's just one of those things that, um, but you just, at the end of the day, I am Sarah,
Yeah.
and you are, I call you Jen.
I
Um,
know. Janae.
Jen. But that's just how it is. And so I think that sometimes we have to recognize that too, is that we don't have to continue to be in that title role, whatever that title role is. And that's freedom.
Right. Or we can explore who is Jenny? Who is Sarah?
Mhm.
Now as a 40-year-old mom? Who is
Mhm.
she? You know, she's not the same person she was 20 years ago, hopefully.
No,
But
no.
who is she now? What are her goals? What lights her up inside? You know,
Probably
figuring
the
those things
same damn
out.
thing.
To some extent, yeah, I think it is some of the same damn things, but I think that we've also evolved enough to know that, like, we have new things and new goals.
Mhm.
You know, just trying to be the best versions of ourselves. You have to explore what's going well, what's not going so well, what are some things we might want to change,
Yeah.
or shift a little bit. And there's no shame in that, but I love that you completely detach, you know, yourself from all of those things, the diagnoses, all of those, because we can get so caught up in labeling ourselves versus just looking inward as far as like, okay, who am I and what do I enjoy and what really brings me joy. um, Specifically when you're thinking about a job, you know, I want to get back to that place where like I jump out of bed in the morning because I'm
Mm.
excited about my day. And I feel like I've gotten there, but it'll be interesting to see if that stays the same once I have a job to go to. Um,
Mhm.
but even this, it's why I love this podcast. It gives us an opportunity to connect with people, to share real experience, to, you know, destigmatize these labels, and to show that you can move through them and you can acknowledge it, but it's not who you are necessarily. It's just a
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle.
Just a piece. Yeah. And
Just
taking chances. I think that's
Mhm.
fun too.
I listen to so many podcasts on the way home, you know, 8-hour drive, lots of opportunity there, but it makes time fly. And again, I went back and listened to some really popular podcasts. I had downloaded like their first couple episodes, like episode 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever,
Mhm.
just to kind of see their growth, because there is a cringy phase of every podcast when it's starting. And one I had listened to, they were actually like mocking they were at their 500th episode and they were mocking like their first 10 episodes. But I'm like, there are certain, I don't really feel cringy about our first few episodes, but I do think there's something to just doing it, just putting yourself out there. It's gonna be a total train wreck. Things are gonna go wrong. Your sound's gonna, the quality is terrible in some of the, like, there are certain things that I would change absolutely, but just like moving through that shit and saying, I'm gonna do it anyway. And let's just
Mhm.
see what happens. You naturally just fall into a rhythm by kind of forcing yourself into these situations that are uncomfortable. And here we
Right.
are, episode 17. Just now, it's like flip the light on, pull up Zoom, and here we are.
Here we
It's not
go.
we don't even plan this week. We go on, "What should we talk about today?" You know? It's
Mhm.
just it's total off the cuff, but it's very fun, which is exactly what I was looking for in moving towards something new,
Oh
is
gosh.
being excited again.
Oh yeah, me too. And like you said, I mean, this morning I popped up and the first thing I'm doing as soon as I get up is I'm spending like 2.5 hours on the computer
Right.
writing a novel of an email to you and God bless Seth. Um about all this stuff. And just because it's what I enjoy, it is because of what it has found for me a different place for psychology. And so
Yeah.
see. Or
Yeah,
just for life,
just
for
for life.
fun.
Good old therapy session. Well,
Mhm.
I think that's a good one for this week.
Mhm.
Number 17 on the 17th. I just looked at the date. How about that?
Whoa, how fun. How about that? Gosh, cheers, cheers. No, but
Cheers.
yeah, keep us up, keep listening. Be sure to check out our website. We do have the blog, we have videos, we have specials that come out every single week. We appreciate your comments, your emails, everything. And we just keep them coming because we really rely on that feedback, that constant connection, as Jen says.
That's right. Yep.
So where can they
Thank
find
you
us?
to all of our listeners, those downloads each week. It means so much to us. And it really, we're so appreciative of all the feedback that we get from friends, from people we don't know. It's just really, really humbling and gratifying and inspiring, all the things. So thank you to everybody that reaches out and listens each week. We so appreciate you. We've got some good stuff coming. We have some really good topics, some hope, some guests we're working really hard
Mhm.
to connect with. So yeah, stay tuned for what's to come. But for now, get started on your spring cleaning or
That's
your summer
right.
cleaning point.
Whatever it may be, but find us on all podcast listening platforms and continue to check in.
That's right.
Yep.
All right. Until next time, LYLAS.